I did want to talk about the next couple of assignments, especially as we get into these financial assignments, because there's two financial assignments. One is called financial resources, which is due on the 5th. And then there is the financial statements assignment. Now, that's really the one I want to talk about for a few moments. Now, if you go into the financial statements assignment, I basically say go to page 574 in your text and complete question 1A and 1B. Now, that is asking you to create a balance sheet and an income statement. A balance sheet and an income statement. Now, I know many of us are not finance people, but the purpose of this assignment is to evaluate what these documents are, what they do document, and what they do tell us about the health of any business. Now, for some of you guys who want to be entrepreneurs, this is very important for you, because how do you identify the health of your business? Obviously, we've talked about profitability, revenue minus overhead, but we haven't really broken down into the different aspects of revenue and the different aspects of overhead, because that includes a lot of items. Now, I hope everyone out there has downloaded the text. Again, let me stress to you that that is a text that you should keep and reference for future courses. Now, when I open the text in my computer, it opens it up in Adobe Photoshop. And you know how at the top of Adobe Photoshop, it'll tell you what page you're on. However, I've noticed that the page on the ribbon of Adobe does not correlate with the page that I'm actually looking at on the document. So be sure to look at the page number on the document, not what the application is saying. So if you want to evaluate, first of all, the assignment, again, the assignment is on page 574. Now, obviously, before you start putting together this balance sheet and income statement, you do want to look at the examples that the book provides. So if you want to look at the example of the balance sheet, go to page 554. 554, and they give you a brief summary of what the balance sheet is. Basically, it says it's one of three financial statements generated from the accounting system. Summarizes a firm's financial position at a specific point in time. It reports the resources of a company, which are obviously the assets of a company. And it also documents the obligations of a company, or what we might call liabilities, which are also part of overhead. Okay, remember, you as a company, you're going to have bills to your suppliers. Okay, and some of these bills may not yet be paid because you haven't made revenue to pay them. So, but still, they are documented in the liabilities section of your balance sheet. And then it looks at the differences between the two, and what is owned as assets, or what is owed as liabilities. So if you look at the balance sheet, it's for a company called Delicious Desserts Incorporated. And you'll see that, first of all, the first item that they will document are the assets. So they have cash, they have stocks and securities, accounts receivable. Now, you may have sent out bills to a business, okay, and they may not have paid you yet, but yet that is money that is still going to come in, that is still documented as an asset. Hopefully that money will come in, okay, depending on how good your accounts receivable efforts are in getting that cash into the company. So, and then, you have your inventory. That's also part of your assets. If you are creating any type of product, let's say a clothing line, you have a whole lot of material. All of that is part of asset. It is worth money, so you do count it as an asset. The next part are what they call fixed assets, and that's primarily machinery. That's not going anywhere. Okay, that's why they call it fixed. But they also do document in their depreciation, because obviously machinery can become outdated. And as it becomes outdated and older, just like your computers, just like any machinery you're using at your job right now, it all becomes less and less valuable. They also talk about any things you might have in your office. They also talk about intellectual property that can also be an asset, and then they totaled it all up together. So take a look at that. Don't let it, consume you or overwhelm you. Kind of just break it down to what it is. Look at how they're adding it up, and then look at the total assets. So for Delicious Desserts, you're looking at about $148,900 in asset. The next thing they're going to look at are liabilities and owner's equity. Liabilities are things, again, like things that you owe, any expenses that you accrued over the past month. Could be maybe you had a plumber, had to go over there and fix your plumbing. Could be anything like that. Taxes, they put taxes in there. Yeah, we all have to pay, especially like if you own your own store, you have to pay property taxes, you have to pay income taxes, things of that nature. So they do document those as liabilities. Actually, that is money that's going out. That's why it's a liability. They add up all your liabilities. Then they break it down even further into something called long-term liabilities. For some of you out there, if you recall in one of our previous assignments when we talked about entrepreneurship, we talked about the fact that, how are you going to finance your business? Okay. And some of you guys said, I'm going to borrow money from my family. Okay. That doesn't always happen. So sometimes you may need to go to a bank and get a loan. Okay, a business loan. You see commercials all the time about small business loans. You hear about some of the small businesses who've gotten loans from the feds during the pandemic to stay alive. Some of these loans do have to be paid back. Some of them do not. Most of the part, let's say, forget the pandemic. We're in a regular state of the world right now. Then if you got a loan, you would have to pay it back long term. That is also a liability, a long-term liability. Then they have things like equity stock now, or owner's equity. That could be stock in the company or any equity that you may have gained in your property. That's going a little deep for us. There's an intro class, so try not to worry about that too much. So then what you do is you take the difference between the two, and you will have your balance sheet of where your assets are and where your liabilities are. If you look at this person, they actually balance out. Okay, again, that's the term balance sheet. You want to make sure that you are at least breaking even in the business that you run. Now, if we look at the income statement, which is actually the form that I like better, because the balance sheet just kind of shows you what's coming in and what's going out. But the income statement actually shows profitability. Okay, so again, if you want to look at the example of the income statement, go to page 557 of the book, and that'll start. Again, it is for Delicious Desserts. You'll see they have sales. Of course, you allow for discounts, or also any returns to the business. So those are subtracted from gross sales, or what we've been calling revenue, and then it'll allow you to calculate net revenue or net sales. So they had $270,500 in net sales. Then they go into the overhead. So they look at how much inventory they have in there, the cost of the goods that they needed to produce. So you subtract that, and then you'll have gross profit. They also look at things like operating expenses, obviously, to break it down a little bit. That's also part of overhead. Salaries, we've talked about labor, advertising, other expenses, utilities, office supplies, insurance. You always have to have insurance as a business. That's part of your overhead, and that's documented in here. So anyway, they total all the expenses and subtract that, again, also including income tax there, to calculate what is called net profit. Okay, so just look at those two examples. You'll be able to put them together. Again, I want to see an assignment that's very nice and neat, created in a table just like they are exampled in the book. That is what I want you to submit to me. If it's easier for you to do that in a Word document, go ahead and do that, upload it, and I will grade it. Now, as we go into really a cool assignment, I really like this one, and this was one that I created last semester. It is the only case study of the course. And the case study calls for you to look at a video that I chose. The video is called The Age of Artificial Intelligence, and I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with the Frontline series that is done through PBS, and they always do like really cool documentaries, and this one is called The Age of AI. Now, the assignment calls for you to look at the video. Now, what I would recommend for you to do, this video itself is a 2-hour long video. It's 2 hours. So be sure to give yourself ample time to watch the video. If you're like me, you're going to dig it anyway. And be sure to take notes as you go through the video. But before you take the notes and watch the video, read the questions of what I'm asking for. Again, the assignment says these questions have to be done in essay format. The first question says, how does automation affect families and the communities? Do you agree with companies making AI changes and their impact? Now, again, as much as we love AI and how it's positively changed our everyday lives, when you look at the grand scale and how it has affected not only the economy, but the communities that make up the economy, it's not always good. Hint, hint. Number 2 says, does AI foster growing inequality? We always hear the talk about inequality and equity. Think about that, okay? Think about that as you're watching the video. There's a professor in there, I can't recall her name, but she breaks it down really good, man. So take some good notes there. They talk about digital exhaust and how social media companies are using digital exhaust to really tailor our online experiences, to customize our online experiences to things that we like and we want. So for some of you like who are into fashion, you might notice you see a lot of fashion ads come up on your timeline, on your Facebook and on your Twitter, on Instagram. How do they know that? Because of your digital exhaust. Number 4, they're talking about the implementation of face recognition software. And I'm not sure how many of you guys have heard, but China is like implementing a whole lot of face recognition software across the country. It's really bizarre and it's really kind of scary about how they're doing. And you think about how the Chinese citizens are living in their city. I mean, just basically being tracked as they walk down the city street. What are the implications of that? Do you think something like that could ever fly here? You never know. You never know. Read the assignment carefully. At the bottom, it says all questions should be answered in detail, capitalized detail. So I will be reading your essays, your case studies very thoroughly. Please be sure to watch your punctuation, capitalization, grammar, sentence structure. After you write your work, go back or maybe let it sit for a day or an hour or whatever, and go back and read it again and make changes. Even when I write something and I go back and I know I have to fix a thing or two because it's not perfect. Remember, communication, I'll stress this again, communication is the most important tool you can have as a business professional in this world. And writing is a big, big component of that.